today we're going to knit one of my designs, which is called the Patrixbourne top. I've already knitted some of it, but I'm going to show you how to put in a marker to start off with, and then we're going to cover all the elements on the key page. This is a picture of the diagram, and so far I've knitted up to this point. The stars represent markers, and so I'm going to put the markers on and then continue increasing either side. To start this process, I'm going to put my pattern back up here. I'm going to put my row counter to 0 so I know where I'm at. I'm going to take two contrasting, it's just to identify where the change is happening. So we need to put this on the end needle. So I just bring the needle forward and just pop it on the end, and then put the weight just to hold it down, to keep it out of the way so that it doesn't get caught up in the brushes. Then one on the other end. Again, just get the weights to hold it. Let's knit. We're going to increase 1 stitch each side every 6th row. So with the row counter on 0, tension 8, bringing a needle forward either side of the markers. We're going to knit 6 rows. So make sure your yarn's all flowing lovely. That's 1. Add a bit of weight just to hold it down. 4, 5, 6. And now you can release the weight from the marker, and it's not secured, it's just a loop at the moment, so we need to tie that off so it's not going to come undone, because that's going to be a useful thing later on. Tie them off. And now we're going to continue to do increasing 1 stitch each side for the next 30 rows. Another 6, 1, 2, and I'm going to continue to do this for another 20 rows until I've made 30, and then I'll be back to show you how to cast on, which is the green line. Okay, so we've arrived at 30. We've got 50 each side. So now we're going to cast on using an E-wrap cast on out to 90. So you bring the needle forward and you literally make an E, the letter E, taking it round and back. Bring the needle forward in front of the latch, take the yarn round and bring it back. And also while you're doing this, it's a bit awkward at first if you haven't done this before, but with practice, and it's just really the key is to keep these needles as level as possible. Also ensuring that the head of the needle, the base of the needle is actually sitting back nicely, and you'll see why in a minute, why that's important. So it's keeping it nice and loose. So you can just get into a nice flow, wrapping the yarn round the needle. And we're actually going to continue to do this out to 90. This is in fact going to be the side seam. There's 100 needles each side of the 0, and we're just taking this out to 90. So we're going round. 82, 3, 4, 5. There's the 90. Stop. The next step after E-wrapping is to bring the needles forward. The needles are brought forward with the stitches on, and this is where you need to do it nice and loose. So at this point you can actually pull them forward easily. I'm a bit of a strange angle, but so you can bring one at a time, so you're kind of holding it down, stitch down, and bringing the needle forward, and it's just securing that stitch, making sure it doesn't jump off. After a bit of practice, you're more confident to bring 2 or 3 back at the same time. And doing it like this, I found it makes this seam as loose as it can be, basically. We now turn the row counter back to 0 and do 1 row from right to left. Before I cast on E-wrap the other side, I'm just going to bring these needles forward, because we need to do this process 4 times just to ensure that these stitches actually stay on. So So we're now moving to the other side. From 50 to 90, we're going to re-wrap that way. So it's bringing it in front of the latch, in front, and then just pulling it back. The latch is a back, so you're just bringing it again. So I'm sort of re-wrapping the other way, making a letter E the other way, just going round. You can kind of feel with your fingers that they are in fact in line, and it's not, it hasn't got to be dead straight. It's just a case of keeping it more or less level. But what we don't want to do is have it too tight. I'll make one really tight when I get to 7, just so you can see the difference. You can see here all the needles are sitting back from the needle bed. So when we get to number 7, I'm going to make this one really tight. So it's almost a bit forward. Okay, now I'm going back to how we did. So we're just working along, gone past 70, and we're just going out to 90. Which is the other side seam. There we go, E-wrap cast on. And now bringing the needles forward as on the other side, or in fact, any time you cast on, or any time you see a green line, this is what you need to do. So they're going forward quite easily. Without a yarn with a knot, it flows a lot easier, but it's a case of making the investment. Okay, so here we come to the 7, where I deliberately did it a bit tighter. You can see that that's actually, I'm always going to force that, it's gone through now, but it's a bit problematic. So it's really about not making problems for yourself, and you learn that with practice, like anything in life really. So loose is good. Loose is better because you can always make something tighter, but if you make it too tight from the beginning, it's really difficult to loosen it up. So we've completed the cast on for the side seam for the Patrixbourne. We re-wrapped all the needles out to 90. We're now going to do a row straight across the machine from left to right. If you give yourself a little bit of slack, then it helps the carriage go across. Now on this side we've done 2 rows, but on this side we've just cast on and done the 1. So again, bring out the needles forward, and they're a lot looser the second time because throughout this garment we're doing tension 8. So we need to do this for 4 rows. I'd like to show you where we are on the pattern actually now. We've cast on the side seams, which are represented by these 2 green lines, and now we're working up, knitting plain rows up this piece here. We've now created enough depth to be able to pull it down and add weights to the end. You can just add this weight onto the end, so it's just hanging over. So it's creating at least a depth so the carriage can pass by. And we put a weight here across the bottom row-ish. As long as there was enough depth for the carriage to pass by. If that depth was less, then the sink bar, this part of the machine, the front plate, I think it's called, I don't know what it's called, this bit, it would actually hit and it would be annoying and you'd probably have to swear. But having this depth of at least ½ an inch, it can move across quite freely. And then now we're set up to do the 40 rows that we need. I'll show you. We're now set up to do the 40 rows we need to do, which is the back shoulder and the front shoulder of the garment. So I'll see you when we get to the top. Okay, so we're now at this point on the pattern, and we're going to put the left side of the garment, which is the back. We're going to put those stitches into hold, and then we're going to cast off, because there's a red line, and red line means cast off. stitches from 10 going past the 0 to 5. To stop these needles knitting, we bring them all forward as the pattern indicates, up to 10. And on the front of the carriage on a knitmaster, there's these side levers which are on 2. We just bring these forward and that will stop the left side of the garment being knitted. Row counter to 0. Take the carriage from the right to the left. And it hasn't knitted those needles. Now, using the transfer tool, we're going to do the cast off, which is represented by a red line on all of my patterns. Giving myself a bit of slack yarn, I'm going to cast off from 10 left of the 0 to 5 right of the 0. So I'm just going to cast off from here to here. So using the transfer tool, putting it onto the stitch, I'm going to bring the needle forward beyond the latch, take it back. So then I've captured it onto the transfer tool. It's going over onto the next stitch. So now I have 2 stitches on the needle. Then in front of the latch, I'm going to put the yarn in front of it so that when I pull the needle back with my thumb, it pulls the yarn through. Effectively, it's making a chain stitch. Transfer 1 stitch onto the other, then manually knit 2 together. Transfer 1 stitch onto the other, and manually knit 2 together. I'm also going to, at this point, add a weight. I'm just clipping it onto the ones I've already cast off, because that just holds them in position and makes a nice loose tension. So forward, back, in front of the latch, knit 2 together. Forward, back, and knit 2 together. The next time we use the cast off, which will be represented by the red line, will be for the side seams and casting off at the cuff. Making sure all these needles that are out of working position are back. Make sure the yarn is on top of the needles so that it can flow through, because we're now going to knit from left to right. And you can to give it a little help along until you feel that first stitch, it kind of bites, and then you can just release it across. So I've got 2 strands together and they're just threaded up the same way into the carriage, and I've secured it onto the leg with a knot just to hold it in place. And also I've changed the tension from 8 to 9. And I'm now going to do, as the pattern indicates, 4 rows. 1, now I'm going to take out the 2 strands and replace them with the main yarn. Now we're going to do a slip row, which is represented on the pattern as a blue line. So what I'm going to do is take 3 strands together, straight into the feeder, turn up the tension and knit 4 rows. There we have a slip row. It just makes a nice feature and it brings in a bit of contrast to the centre front of the garment. Now we're going to do, just continue along with the pattern until we reach the go day. We're going to do a loop feature, which is represented by a purple line, and I'm just going to show you how to do it. So it starts off with doing one row of slip like we've done before, and I've already done a row of slip. So now I'm going to do 10 rows contrast in a contrasting colour and another row of slip just to show you how to do the loop feature. So 10 rows. I've done 9 of the 10 rows needed for the contrast slip feature, but on the 9th row, to make sure the carriage actually is on the left of where the card is, okay? And then we can do the 10th row. The next process is again using the friendly transfer tool, and we're going to hook up in multiples of 10 across the front of where the contrast yarn is before we do the next slip row to make the loop feature. So just picking up a couple of the loops from the loop feature and placing them on the needle in front, and then do them in multiples of 10. So it's pick up some loops, follow up, put it on, picking up the loop from the slip row, placing it on the needle. Of course you can do this as many times as you like. You can do 20, multiples of 20, 10. Hey, you're the designer, you decide. But this is the process. Pushing the needles out of hold because we want these to knit, and because we've actually got the left side of the garment in hold, we don't want to leave those out. Just taking the needles out of hold, just pushing them in so that they will pick up the stitches when I take the carriage across. This is the loop feature completed, having another row of, having hooked it up, another row of slip on top. Now using just one strand of the yarn, I'm going to knit 5 rows, and then we're going to proceed to do the go day, which is the patterning triangle on the front of the garment. So bringing from 90 to 70 the needles forward into hold, and then we're going to take from the carriage from the left to the right to start doing the go day. So what I'm doing is actually bringing 2 needles forward, 1 row, the adjacent needle forward, making 3. I call this shaping, I call it a go day. We're actually making a triangle. So we're making half the triangle going from right to left, and then we're going to reverse the process from left to right. Now we've got to 15 stitches to the right hand side of the knot, and we're going to reverse the process. These are the 2 stitches that we've made when we were going up. So there we go. We've got 2 knitted and then 2 on 1 needle. So on the reverse side, just watch in fact. We're actually pushing in 4 stitches in, but also looking to where those 2 stitches are. Don't get caught up in numbers too much. Just decide whether to go this side of those 2 stitches or the other side. So there's 4, 1 row, minus 1 makes 3. 4 in, 1 row and 1 up. Push 4 out of hold, 1 row and one up. We now progress to page 12, having completed page 11, and we're now going to knit the back of the garment, having knitted already the two fronts. So the two fronts are hanging off the machine. All the needles are in hold. I've moved the row counter, so this is a removable row counter on this particular machine, from one end to the other. So I've just got it here, it's on naught. I've still got the front levers forward on this machine, which is in hold, but I don't want these needles to be in hold, but I do want these needles to stay in hold. Taking the needles on the left, which is going to be the back section, just pushing them out of hold, connected the yarn through the carriage, got tension 8 as indicated by the pattern, and I'm going to do 2 rows. Take the carriage from the left, take it across to the right. On the right side now, I've got 2 centre fronts hanging. One is attached to the first section, and the second centre front is actually just been knitted, but it's not joined to the rest of the machine yet. So we're going to forget about that for a minute. So for what we're doing now is over on the left side of the machine, and we're doing the back. We've done 1 row from left to right, and we're going to pull 1 needle forward, not into hold, just into working position, and we're going to go from right to left. And then we're going to knit 2 rows. So we're going to increase 1 stitch every second row for 20 rows. 3, 4, increase 1 stitch, 5, 6, just moving the weight up so it keeps it nice and taut. So we've done 16, 19, 20 rows. Put in a marker, just a contrast yarn. On the right hand side of the back section, we're going to bring, as the pattern's indicated, 10 needles into hold. And then we're going to knit 1 row from right to left. When the carriage is on the right, we've done 1 row, and we're going to bring 1 needle forward. And while we've got a close-up of this, what's happening, because we're now going to make a go day, is that when the carriage turns from the right to the left, that yarn goes over the top, which suddenly looks like it's forming another stitch, but in fact it's just wrapped over. So it's like, that's why we call it an E-wrap. Why we call it a wrap, it wraps over. The whole of the back section is now knitted with a marker at the centre of the centre back, which is the first side of the go day. With the carriage on the right, on the left, I'm going to show you how to connect the back to the front in one easy swoop. We've increased where we decreased back to 90. So what we need to do now, we need to bring these needles forward, which are in between 5 and 10. And what we're going to create is a temporary cast on. Bring them right forward. Then we're going to go back to the carriage. And we're going to take the 2 front levers off hold. 1, 2. So now when the carriage goes from left to right, it's going to knit all of those stitches. But what we've got in the centre is a temporary cast on, so we now need to make that a permanent cast on, as in a green line. But we have got the ideal length of yarn to actually do that on the temporary cast on, so I need to undo that. So I'm going to undo that now. And now a cast on, which is just an E-wrap. Because it's a green line, it means you've got to bring the needles forward for 4 rows as we did at the beginning, or at any time on any of my designs that you see a green line, this is what you do. Needles forward, row counter to 0. One row, needles forward. 2 rows, needles forward. 3 rows, needles forward. And now we've created enough depth. I'm going to help that down, and we can just put a weight across there. Make sure the stitches don't jump off. So there we go. Just follow the diagram to complete your garment.